One of three things happen. Life doesn't go according to your plan. It does go according to your plan, but you don't feel like you thought you would. Like you finally are in this marriage, but you still don't, you're not free from your sadness or depression or low self-worth or whatever it was that you thought the marriage was going to fix. Or life just throws you an unexpected curveball.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back to the Relationship School's Smart Couple Podcast. My name's Jayson Gaddis. I'm your host, and we are going to get into partnership, long-term relationship, and marriage and monogamy in this podcast. If you're new, welcome. We are all about growing through our challenges and turning them into opportunities in our intimate relationships. We are all about romantic relationships and how to do them well, and it's a challenge. So we give you lots of tips and tools on how to help you with that. If you're returning, I'm grateful you're back. Thank you. Good to have you here. Psyched. And as a small token of appreciation, if you want to leave us an appreciation, a small token of appreciation, please leave us a review on iTunes. You can go to jasongaddis.com/podcast review if you want instructions on how to leave a review right from your phone. We always appreciate that. It means a lot to us as a thank you for all the content and information you're getting here, okay, for free. Cool. Now, my next guest is Christine Hassler, and she has got a really, really cool story, and she talks about being on antidepressants and her divorce very openly here. I think you're going to learn some good lessons from it, and I'm psyched to dive in. We also talk about expectations and why expectations are so damaging in relationships. And often we're putting our expectations and trips on our partner, and it's implicit. We're not being explicit. We're not making agreements, and we're not talking openly about them. We're just sort of expecting our partner to behave a certain way, and then we're getting pissed and hurt and disappointed when they don't. Understandable. But you might want to check yourself on your expectations, okay? And Christine's going to offer some great guidance here on that. Okay, Christine tells a bit of her story, but I'll just say a few things about her in her bio here. As a professional speaker, Christine leads seminars and workshops to audiences around the country. She's spoken to over 100,000 people at colleges, personal growth events, conferences, and corporations. She's appeared as an expert on The Today Show, CNN, ABC, CBS, Fox, E!, Style, and PBS, as well as various local TV and radio shows, speaking about life issues and expectation hangovers, something she's proficient in, and we're going to talk about in this podcast. Christine is a spokesperson for American Express and the key resource for their women's and millennial advocacy programs. She's a member of the Millennial Advisory Board for Cosmo Magazine, and she created a life balance curriculum for the Leadership Institute. She's also a member of Northwestern's University Council of 100, the Young Entrepreneur Council, and is a faculty member of University of Santa Monica. So she's got lots of skills here, and she's going to bring them, and I think you're going to dig her and appreciate her message. Again, weaving in beliefs, how we feel about ourselves being such a big impact on how we do relationship. Okay, we're going to dig into that more and more in this podcast, is having people on talking about how self-awareness and self-worth, appreciating yourself, valuing yourself is one of the key determining factors of an awesome partnership, right? Oh, and one more thing. There was a little technical glitch here. For the first 20 seconds or so, Christine's intro was deleted and gone in the ethers forever. I made some kind of error there. So my apologies in advance. She's basically in midstream of introducing herself. So the question I had asked her was, Christine, welcome to the show. Who are you and what are you up to in the world? And how did you get there? It's often a question like that I ask my guests when they first come on. So as we start here, you'll notice she's just kind of launching into it. Pretend that she said, yeah, hey, Jayson, good to be here. And I said, hey, Christine, welcome. Psyched to have you on the Smart Couple Podcast. So pretend that already happened. And here we go.
I was 25, where I was, super successful in my career in Hollywood. I was an agent, but I was miserable. And in a period of 5 months, I left my job. I got dumped by my fiance. I was estranged from my family. My health was really bad, and I was in tons of debt. And I had this bathroom floor, very dramatic eat, pray, love moment where I was just like, I don't want to be here anymore. And what's the point of life? And it created a bit of an awakening, a bit of a shift of an awareness that the common denominator in all of those situations was me. And I could either continue to think that I was a victim of my life or I had something to do with it. Now, this is tricky because I think a lot of people in the personal development world know that we create our reality. So we have to be careful that we don't over blame ourselves, because then we just go into like, I'm screwing up my life and I'm a terrible manifester.
It's all my fault. Yeah.
It's all my fault. And then we go into hopeless, helpless. So we have to get out of victim, but not go into the over responsibility. And I find that the place where I find the most peace is to go into seeker, go into student, go into what am I learning, and really knowing the universe is for me, even if what I'm going through really, really, really sucks. So my best training, I mean, I've got degrees and all that, but my best training has been my life experience. And I feel blessed to have had a wide variety of life experiences, including a divorce in my 30s, where I really can understand what a lot of people are going through. I also have a history of depression, was put on antidepressants at 11 and was on them until 30. So I know that whole dance of really like freeing ourselves from an addiction to something. And it's all been, I feel like my work is really about helping people get out of suffering so they can really step into their full potential and do what they're meant to do here in the world. And that doesn't mean everybody has to go start a nonprofit or, I think that we think that impact has to be scalable and it has to be big, but impact can be being a great partner, being a great parent, being a great friend. Just lifting your own consciousness, you kind of raise the vibration of the planet. So that's what I'm committed to. I'm continually a student and seeker of life, and then I teach what I learn.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. Yeah, I can relate. Very cool. I want to come back to bits and pieces of your story, and then I want to get into the expectation thing. 11. Why were you put on antidepressants at 11? What was happening?
Well, I think that, it was the time, I guess it was the late 80s, 90s, something like that. And it was the time when there was a drug for everything, right? And my parents saw me really suffering in school. I was a great student, but socially I was having trouble, like some teasing and stuff. And I just felt like I didn't really belong. Now in hindsight, I can kind of look back and see that I was a very kind of psychically open, sensitive child. And I also had headaches right here, which is what we call our third eye, which is all about our spiritual sight. And I was incredibly empathic. And I think that my sensitivity, the only way I could cope with it at the time was just to shut down. Yeah. And that happens to a lot of us. We just, it's too much and we don't know what it is. We don't understand it. And so we just shut down. And I think my parents are wonderful and they love me very much. And I think that they saw their outgoing, energetic, happy little girl just sort of wither away. And of course they want to know why. And of course they want to fix. So that's, I think, why. And then, the doctors told me if you were diabetic, you'd take insulin, like you have a chemical imbalance and you're going to need to be on these for the rest of your life. So just like any belief that gets seeded at an early age, that was a belief system that I really thought was true. And it's amazing, Jayson, as you know, like those beliefs that get ingrained early in life, man, do they feel true when they're really not. But do they feel true? So much to the point that I think they create physiological symptoms and they impact our choices and everything like that. So it was, it took me a good I think all through my 20s, I dabbled with wanting to get off of them. But it wasn't until like my late 20s and then by 30, I was finally like, I was finally done and haven't ever gone back. But, they served me for a time.
Yeah, for sure. What was there's 8 million, by the way, teens and kids on psychotropic meds right now in America. It's intense. And how many of them are like just psychically open like you were, or just sensitive and couldn't deal with the world, right?
Right, or just have big feelings and aren't taught to process it. As little kids, we're allowed to have temper tantrums, but as adults, we're not. One of the exercises in my last book, Expectation Hangover, is how to have an adult temper tantrum in a safe way where you really release your feelings. Because I think that as adults, we think we're just supposed to meditate our way out of it, or journal our way out of it, or exercise our way out of it. And sometimes we just need to feel. We need to yell and scream and cry and move those emotions through us, because I think a big part of my depression and so many other people's is suppression and repression, both repression of feelings, repression of gifts, repression of creativity. I think a lot of people are born into families that, because like the consciousness of the planet is lifting, right? And so a lot of people are born into families where they kind of feel like they're the black sheep, where they don't fit in, and they're not like everybody else. And that can be a real struggle.
Yeah, for sure. When you had your breakthrough kind of insight moment, the Eat, Pray, Love moment, and then it sounds like it took you about 5 years, because that was at 25, and then 5 more years before you weaned yourself off the medication. I love the moment where you said, I'm, it's kind of my responsibility. I'm the one common denominator. I had a very similar moment for me. What was happening at that time that had you? What was it that kind of punctured the whole thing?
It was getting so dark and so low. Like it was such like kind of a dark night of the soul moment of even thinking like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like those kind of thoughts. And it was allowing myself to feel the intensity of it that eventually I think it was a miracle, honestly, Jayson, where something bigger than me, I got a glimpse of. Yeah. And just a glimpse, it was just a glimpse and just a short little second of feeling something, feeling love, like feeling unconditional love inside of me, not from a guy or a job or losing 5 pounds or anything like that, but feeling that unconditional love and acceptance. And it was like, whoa,
that got your attention.
What was that? Yeah, it got my attention. Yeah.
And then what was the process like? And you said you got a divorce about age 30, is that right?
I was about 31 or 32. Yeah, I got married when I was 28. And I met my ex-husband 4 or 5 months after my fiance broke up with me. And he's an amazing man. And I think that we were what I call journey mates. And journey mates, by my definition, are you have a contract. And it has an expiration date. And it doesn't mean that the relationship has to be terrible or intense in terms of a breakup, but it reaches its point where you've learned all you can learn from each other. And then it's time to move on. And for us, I really got on my path. Like I got off antidepressants. I went back to school for my spiritual psychology degree. Growth became an even bigger value to me. And for him, it wasn't the same. So our values really started to shift. And I think we were drawn to each other because he helped me with a massive healing with my dad. In a lot of ways, he was similar to my dad. And I helped him with a massive healing with his mom. And once that was kind of complete, that's when the relationship sort of started to kind of just, I don't know, like move into like this best friend kind of place. And we went to therapy and we worked on it. But when it came down to it, like our value system and just where we were going wasn't aligned. And so I'm lucky that I was able to have a very peaceful divorce without lawyers or anything. And but it was hard. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. Like I lost half my hair. I felt like a failure. I'm a coach. Like I should figure this out. I vowed to be with this person forever. So it just blew up all my belief systems about marriage and failure and myself. And it was definitely intense. It wasn't like legally intense, but like emotionally and judgment wise, so intense. Yeah. And I thought I was crazy for, divorcing such a great guy. But in my heart and my gut, I knew that our time together was complete.
Did you get shit from people or were people supportive?
Oh, totally. Both. Okay. Both. There were people that were supportive and then there are people that are like, you're crazy. I mean, I had a lot of people tell me just to have a baby and then that would fix it. And I thought that was terrible advice. Yeah.
Oof. That's intense.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's the tricky thing about any relationship, whether you're married or not. I definitely would say I still love my ex-husband. I always will. I have great love for him in my heart. And it's like when the relationship goes away, it's like, can we keep our heart open? Can we keep the love there without thinking that we have to like stop loving to be able to get over something? and move on. So for me, it was a very, I got to look at a lot of things. I got to look at everything I projected on men, like my financial security, my safety, my sense of worth. When you get married, you feel chosen by someone. You kind of feel done. And in the divorce, at the time I was working, my career had launched. My first book came out in 2005, but I was kind of leaning on him a little bit financially. And in that separation, I really had to look at everything I projected kind of on men and on the masculine, and really step into that inside myself. Even that sense of safety and security, not just financially, but feeling safe and secure inside myself. Because honestly, I had never really been single. Since 19, I had a boyfriend or a fiance or something, and spent maybe 2 to 3 months, if that, in between each one. So it was a great opportunity for me to learn how to become a good partner to myself.
Yeah, wow. It seems like that process had you kind of have yourself, like have your own, stay with yourself. And I'm curious, was there any ingredient in there for the listener that, for them, that if they're going through a similar process, like how does one stay true to the voice inside or what with all the messages coming at you?
Well, I think it's two things. Externally, it's having a really strong support system. And not just friends. Like I dove into finding like my teachers, my healers. Like I prayed for, please let the people that can help me move through this, like please bring them to me. So having that kind of external help and also support from friends, I think is really important. And then internally, it's really all about finding that like inner parent inside ourselves. Because in a lot of ways, we're born, we know we're connected to source, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. And that's our comfort. That's our true north, right? And then we kind of project the image of that onto our parents, and they become our source of love. And then I think we tend to then project relationship as our source of love, that's the thing that's going to fill us up. So I had to come back to myself and come back to my relationship with my higher power and really be a good partner to myself, and tremendous self-compassion and being willing to be in the sadness or be in the anger, but find this place of compassion and acceptance with it, not judging it, not going, I have to get over this. I have to be on with it. I just want to feel better. Like letting it be okay that I felt really sad and really awful for a little bit of time. And just sitting in that with compassion and with acceptance, just like you would sit with a sick child.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I'm almost hearing like just a meditation. Is that sort of what you would call it? Just
a meditation. A lot of, Expectation Hangover was written on the heels of my divorce. So everything in that book is basically what I did. So on the emotional level, it was like the temper tantrum technique, something called release writing, which isn't journaling. It's kind of like free form writing that you rip up or burn, where you just kind of get all your crazy thoughts out. Using techniques like what I call the horseback rider of, seeing your mind go to a certain place and just saying, whoa, and like moving it into a different direction, like just being aware of the thoughts, riding off. Meditation was a big one for me. And also, something that I did is I made a list of, everything that he was to me, all the characteristics that I was missing, and really took action to step into those things inside myself. So that action, that action helps. But I think we need all of it. I think we can't just do action. We can't just meditate. We can't just have our emotions. And we can't just think differently. We need that holistic, emotional, mental, behavioral, and spiritual approach to true healing. I mean, you can muscle through something without doing kind of all levels. But then I feel like the same type of expectation hangover will come back just in a different form. And I was really clear, like my next relationship that hasn't happened yet, but I feel it coming, nice. will be one that is a lasting partnership. Like I'm ready for that side by side, let's build a life together partnership. And so I really was committed to not just getting over it, but really being complete with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful. All right. Quick interruption from our sponsor, The Relationship School. The Deep Psychology of Intimate Relationships is that 9-month class you never got in school but should have, folks. It's 2 semesters long, just like college, but way deeper and confronting. And you're going to learn a lot about yourself and valuing yourself much, much more. Here's what one woman recently said about her experience.
It was an amazing experience coming to the school with no expectations, and learning so many tools that got me so much clarity and understanding of how a long-term relationship is built, understanding and getting more clear on my own values, my own needs, and that those somehow need to be addressed and aligned to have a solid relationship. Great experience.
Yeah, that was Vivi from Colorado. She had her life get turned upside down and inside out in the very best of ways, and she came out stronger on the other side, and certainly more empowered and educated about how this whole long-term romantic relationship stuff works. Okay, so if you want in on the action, go to jasongaddis.com/relationship school to find out more, and we'd love to see you in here. We have spots left, and it's going to be a roaring good time here in Colorado. And remember, most of this training is virtual. You just have to come to 2 weekends in September and May. The rest is online, and you can attend from the comfort of your own home. Okay, super powerful, and it's going to be a roaring good time. Okay, back to Christine Hassler. Walk us through expectations. Like, you keep using the term expectation, and then you've said that your book, Expectation Hangover. What does that mean, and what's the big deal with expectations?
So, expectations are those things that we hold out there that we think are going to make us feel a certain way, right? They're a little different from goals, and our goals are very kind of specific, purposeful things that we take responsibility for creating. Expectations are a little different because we kind of abdicate our responsibility onto something or someone else making us feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. Like, I have an expectation of my partner, for example, to know what I want for my birthday, right? And if he doesn't, then he doesn't love me or doesn't really know me or something like that. Like, the expectation that people that love us can read our mind in some way. Yeah. Or the expectation that once I make a certain amount of money, then I'm going to feel confident. Or the expectation that once I lose a certain amount of weight, then I'm going to be ready to date, or whatever it may be. Or even the expectation of, if I do something for you, Jayson, like, I expect you to, do something for me in the same way. Mm-hmm. So it's basically attachment. It's looking at wanting something with so much attachment because we're so desperate for the feeling. And how we manage our expectations is to pursue our goals with high involvement and intention, but low attachment to it. So whenever we work on a project or go on a date or make a request of someone, to give it our all, to not be lazy, and not expect the universe just to drop magical things in our lap, but not make our emotional okayness, our state of well-being, our self-concept dependent on the result. That's where expectations get us in trouble. Yeah. Is we have such high emotional attachment that when it doesn't go our way, we fall apart, or we get super angry at someone else. And that just sets us up for massive disappointment.
Yeah, it seems like...
Did that answer your...
Yeah, totally. That's great. It seems like, in my experience, that anger in the people I work with arises out of an expectation, and that they didn't meet the expectation, right? So I love this concept of holding it sort of loosely. And to sort of challenge this a little bit, in your past marriage or maybe a future relationship for you, I can hear the listener going, yeah, but aren't expectations okay? Like, can I expect my partner to not cheat on me? Can I expect them to be into growth and development? Can I expect them to be kind to me and respectful? And like, what do you say?
Well, I think it's a semantics thing. One of my coaches, Steve Chandler, I love his distinction. He talks about making agreements rather than expectations. So, you can have an agreement with your partner monogamy. You can create agreements, and agreements are clearly communicated agreements between you and I, where both people agree to it. An expectation is where you think it's just assumed. That someone's going to do something. And that's much different than creating the agreement. And an agreement is just a much more conscious level of communication with someone to really form agreements. Even with my team and the people that work with me, we create agreements and we perception check. Like, if we create an agreement that someone's going to, get me the revised version of a sales page by Friday at 4:00, I'm like, okay, do we have an agreement that this will be done at 4:00? And just let's perception check. What did you hear me say that I need? And we go through. And I think that we get a little lazy in our communication.
I would agree.
And so I think it's great to have agreements with your partner, but the expectations kind of set up like there's a charge to it that we don't necessarily need, and there's sort of a righteousness to having expectations. Now, that said, I think that we can also use the word expectations to have like positive anticipation of things to come in our life. Like I think a lot of us do worst case scenario thinking, which leads to a lot of worry and a lot of anxiety. If you have a history of people cheating on you, maybe your dad cheated on your mom or whatever, you may have this expectation that, the next person you date is going to cheat on you. So there's that anxiety of like, when is it going to happen? Because that's still a belief system that's seated in your consciousness. And so you have that expectation. And a lot of times those untrue expectations that are just based on fear create a reality we don't want. So we want to have positive anticipation of the future. And life is going to throw us curveballs, but why worry about curveballs that aren't there yet? Like, why worry about things that aren't happening? Can you have that positive anticipation of can you quote unquote expect the best and form agreements rather than being in the world of assumptions?
Okay, great. Let me walk through an example. So let's say I want to feel safe in my relationship, okay, because that's a big one for people. And I expect you to behave in ways that make me feel safe, right?
Right.
Chances are you're going to blow it and I'm going to get angry, and it's not always because you're going to get triggered and react and we're going to fight.
Right.
So that expectation will likely not be met and I'll end up frustrated. What I hear you saying is, what if we had an agreement, however, that was like, hey, can we agree to like treat each other in a safe way in this relationship explicitly? Right. Do you agree? Yes, I agree. Okay, and what does that look like? And here's what I hear you saying, and here's what I hear me saying. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, and I think that for couples, you form an agreement of how you want to handle arguments. You form an agreement of how you want to handle something when someone breaks the agreement and what that communication is going to look like. I think that having a plan for communication before an argument or a expectation hangover happens is really important, because then you have kind of a process and some tools to go through. But again, like, it's kind of back to, are you taking responsibility for communicating your needs, and are you taking your responsibility for your upset too? And not being like, you did this, you made me feel da-da-da-da-da, but like taking responsibility for whatever got triggered inside of you and being able to communicate that to your partner with I language and making then a request of what you need rather than just yelling at them and expecting them to fix it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, and then so we are clear on the definition, what is an expectation hangover?
It's disappointment. So it's when three things happen. Life doesn't go according to your plan. It does go according to your plan, but you don't feel like you thought you would. Like, you finally are in this marriage, but you still don't. You're not free from your sadness or depression or low self-worth or whatever it was that you thought the marriage was going to fix. Or life just throws you an unexpected curveball.
Yeah, that's it. That second one, I was like, oh boy, that's a big one. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So walk through the same again.
Life doesn't go according to plan.
Yep.
It does go according to plan, but you don't have the feelings you thought you would have when the plan comes true. Or life throws you an unexpected curveball. You know, you get diagnosed with an illness, someone cheats on you, your relationship ends, you get fired from a job, you get a parking ticket, those kind of things.
Got it. And the hangover is like an emotional reaction to all of those.
Right. So like, if you think of a regular hangover, there's a sense of regret. Your head's aching. In an expectation hangover, you might not have a physical headache, but your head just may be spinning with so much thought. Yep. There's confusion. There's lack of motivation. There's just a sense of like, I just like don't want to like get out of bed.
Totally. Yeah, and it's, to me, it's great. Isn't that great feedback? It's like a night of partying. You wake up with a hangover. That's really good feedback that it was too much.
Exactly.
Right? It's like you did something. You were a little out of integrity there.
Exactly.
So we can use, if I hear you right, we could use that, the hangover as feedback that maybe we had an expectation and we need to evaluate and look at that.
Totally.
Okay.
100%.
Great. What's one step a person can do to move in that direction?
Well, I think the first thing is sort of like to take a breath and sort of look at the personal responsibility is a place to start. Personal responsibility without blame. And to move into acceptance, because the biggest thing that creates resistance when we're in an expectation hangover is we're so mad it happened. Like we fight with reality. You know, Byron Katie says when you fight with reality, you only lose 100% of the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like accept. Like, I don't like this, but I accept it.
But
so we
it's what's
stop
happening.
fighting, stop
Yep.
resistance. It's what's happening.
Yep.
And then you ask the question, okay, what am I learning? What is here for me to learn? And then it's like, what is one action I can take? You know, what's one action that I can take emotion on the emotional level, the mental level, the behavioral action level, and the spiritual level that will help me start to seek the lessons from this and move through the hangover feelings.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't want to do is common coping strategies like numbing ourselves, overeating, over drinking, being on the internet, overworking. You know, working is a very socially acceptable, distracting, numbing strategy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or like just going to everything's fine. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be strong and just push through it. That's like pushing it under the rug. And we can also do something called spiritual bypass, you know, when we just go, oh, well, it's happening for a reason and there's a lesson in it. And we sort of just like sing song over it, versus like really kind of being willing to look at the nitty gritty and the part that we don't necessarily want to look at to get like the real lesson.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that last piece because that is a seductive one for a lot of people to use New Age spiritual jargon to think they've actually dealt with it or they're getting some lesson, but they're not really.
Totally.
Yeah, great.
Totally.
Wow, cool. This is all really helpful stuff. Christine, thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
What's another, just while I've got you before we wind down here, just another insight or a share and a practice someone could do that's kind of, they're resonating. They're like, okay, I got this. I got my expectation hangover practice. This is really good. Just any basic advice from your own experience about relationships specifically.
Well, I think, you know, our relationship with ourself impacts our relationship with another more than anyone else. You know, I was just talking to a friend of mine at dinner. She's been married for only like 4 years now, but got married later. I think she got married when she was about 40. And they have a daughter. And she said to me, you know, she's been a lot kinder to herself. She's been doing some work on herself and her own beliefs. And she's like, it's amazing how much more attracted I am to my husband when I'm nicer to myself. He's doing nothing different. Nothing.
Yeah.
But I'm so much more attracted to him, not just sexually, but just physically, emotionally, mentally, everything. And so that's where it begins. I think that we often expect, the primary reason I believe there's so many challenges in relationship is we project so many expectations on our partner. We expect them to be everything, our lover, our best friend, our counselor, our most amazing co-parent, and we kind of live in these nuclear family structures when we really need to have like our needs met by a variety of people, you know, like you can't, for women, especially if you're married to a man, you can't expect him to be your girlfriend and understand you kind of on an emotional level that maybe your best girlfriend does. You can't expect him to be your therapist and everything else. So it's really loving and acknowledging the qualities of your partner rather than collecting evidence for where they're disappointing you or where they're not living up to your expectations. And again, that all starts with ourselves, you know, taking responsibility for our own relationship with ourselves and anything we're like longing for in a partner, going, okay, where am I not giving this to myself? Or where do I need to like go out and get that from a friend or a coach or something like that, so that I'm not expecting my partner to be everything. Because when you stop expecting them to be everything, then you can really appreciate the things that they are.
Yep. I feel room, like I have space when you say that. I'm like, oh, thank you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You
Right?
just be you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Where can people find you, your book? What are you up to next?
Well, one of my favorite things is my podcast, which I'm going to interview you for. So every Wednesday, I actually put up an episode where I coach people live on the air. And there's a lot of relationship coaching. So it's an unedited coaching session with me. And the podcast is called Over It and On With It. So you can check that out. The book's called Expectation Hangover. That's my last one. Christine Hassler is my website where I give free content and advice a lot. I've got a new relationship course coming out called Get Over Your Heartache and On with Love. And then if you are a fan of television, you can check out a new show called The Spouse House, which premieres July 9th on TLC. I'm the coach and host on that show, and it's all about getting people married.
Wow. Damn, that's a lot. Cool. And where's your favorite social media hangout if someone was to follow you on social media?
I love Instagram. That's where I am the most. And I love when people connect with me there. Yeah.
All right.
And it's Christine Hassler is my handle.
All right, great. We'll find you there. We'll put all of that in the show notes. And Christine, thank you so much for your heart, your wisdom, and your time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the amazing content you're putting out about relationships. I think one of the assumptions is that we're just supposed to know. And like once we fall in love with someone, like we're just supposed to get it. And these two people in a relationship are supposed to figure it out, or single people on their own are just supposed to figure it out. And to have the kind of content and wisdom that you're putting out there, Jayson, is so valuable. So thank you for helping us all navigate this path.
Yeah, you got it. All right, pal. Good stuff in there. Very clear communication there around expectations. I really, really appreciated this episode for that Christine really brought clarity for a lot of you to the expectation conversation, because I get emails a lot about this one. All right. So go to christinehassler.com for more of her info. That link's in the show notes. All right. You can just access that on your phone if you want. And let's talk about a few things here before the action step. So notice that pain helped her get on her path, right? Trust your pain, guys. In my talk in San Francisco, we zeroed in on this. Pain is essential for you to learn anything in your life. Stop running away from your pain. Then notice the willingness to end a relationship and even still have respect and be friends with this person, okay? She had a willingness to end a relationship as their values started to change. So many people stay stuck. As the values change and evolve, people stay because of religion or because so-and-so told me so or because my parents got a divorce. I don't want to get a divorce. Just notice the permission here. Hopefully there was some modeling there. And then notice the difference between expectations and agreements. Pretty cool, right? So I want you to get clear on your agreements. And I just want to ask you to do one agreement. Turn one of your expectations into an agreement. For example, you might want your partner to go to therapy with you when times get tough. But if you haven't made that an agreement and it's an expectation, and then your partner digs their heels in because they don't want to go because they think you're fine, that's an expectation that you have on your partner, and it's going to create what she called an expectation hangover. So instead of that, just change it to, honey, proactively, let's think about the next time we get into big fights and we're stuck. Let's ask for help. Let's throw out the line and let's go to a therapist in town here or a relationship school coach for some support when we're stuck. Let's just agree that that's what we do when we're really stuck. The little stuff, fine, we can probably get through that. But the big stuff, let's get help. Hello? That's normal, right? So, and then you make an agreement, okay? And then you both go, nod your head, yes, I agree. If you want to put it in writing, put it on the fridge, great. All right? And if you want more info on agreements and what those look like, go to jaysongaddis.com/10A, number 10, and then just letter A for 10 agreements. Okay, and my wife and I have outlined very clearly for you 10 agreements that you can model your marriage around. And these have been essential for us. Once we agree on them, it's just the program. This is how we live our relationship. If we need to review them, we do. And we don't hardly ever because they're just agreed upon now. This is the culture of our marriage. So go to jaysongaddis.com/10A to learn more about agreements, all right? Okay, folks, leave us a review if you like this episode. Comment in the Smart Couple community. Please take some action outside of your isolated silo and get in relationship with other people like us who are listening to this podcast. You can do that in the Smart Couple Facebook group. You can do that in the blog, in the podcast blog. Just leave a comment below. like someone else's comment, make a comment, right? I share this a lot on social media, these episodes every week, so you can engage with me there. I'll often leave a comment back, but please engage. It helps your learning process, right? And if you really want to step it up, you apply to become a member of our Relationship School Roots community, right? It's where the folks are hanging out that really want a result. JaysonGaddis.com/roots to apply, okay? And it also gets you a discount on my courses, right? And if you want to take the bigger course of the Relationship School, it gets you a discount there. All right, friends, wonderful to be with you on the tail end here of my family trip. I had an amazing time with my fam. We work very hard, my wife and I, to create a culture that is conducive for our kids to thrive in. And it's a very safe, secure situation for them because my wife and I bust our ass to face our challenges as they come up. Hopefully, you'll do the same. All right, we will talk very soon.